I've called this talk Bucked in the Yarn, Not in the Piece, and I'll explain that. My home village was where for 400 years they made the best sailcloth in the world. But they realized that the best sailcloth was only as good as the twine that held it together on the boats in the rigging. And so the community put their efforts into ensuring that the strength was in the yarn, not in the piece of the sailcloth. And I think that's a hugely interesting analogy for a maritime destination, that basically it's all the bits working together that makes the headline acts a success. So bucked in the yarn, not in the piece, means that the strength comes from everybody collaborating, working together in order to give the power of driving the ship forward. So the agenda, an overview of trends and their implications for you, an introduction to a few case studies that balance out the ones you're going to hear from Tim and Misha, and then a little bit on destination management. But effectively, all of that will be available to you post this webinar for you to have a look at it in your own time. So let's just have a look at some trends. Well, COVID, the end of tourism as we know it, maybe. But what we actually find is that COVID accelerated existing trends. And it's those longer lasting trends that were emerging before March of 2020 that give us the indicators, I think, of what's going to remain with us going forward. And we need to look at those in detail. So pre-COVID, we saw the shouting about over-tourism, the concerns of communities from Barcelona, Vienna, even the Lake District in England, about the communities concerned about over-tourism, too many people arriving at the wrong time and exceeding the existing capacity. 2018, we saw the Barcelona Declaration called Better Places to Live, Better Places to Visit, with this recognition that if we engage more with the community to develop our tourism thinking, then a great place to live would automatically be a wonderful place to visit. We also had messages coming from our guests saying that they too were concerned about the impact of our existing tourism policies and activities in creating experiences that were less than optimal for them. We saw comments like, we're drowning in a sea of sameness. And the picture at the bottom of the screen there is the first page of the visitor comments book at the Wordsworth Museum in the Lake District, where it basically reads, we're all so bored, we're all so tired of everything. So, things were needing to change. And COVID came with devastating and dramatic impact. And in addition to the obvious hits that we've all taken, COVID exposed the emptiness of destination slogans and the silliness of much of destination branding, whilst at the same time amplifying the importance of a destination's reputation, behavior, and the way you act. Big messages to us that Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand said, know us by our deeds. And I think this is going to be really important going forward and will influence everything that we do and think about in the development of the Cliff Coast and the experiences we offer our visitor. And behind that will become very apparent a new language that's now invading tourism. The World Tourism Organization has already stated that trust will be the new currency. But we're seeing these other words emerging very quickly. Destinations want to be admired, desired, loved. They want to be better managed. They want to be respected. They want to be developed in a collaborative way with the community, with all the interests and stakeholders in a destination, and they want to be safe, secure, and trusted. And there's a new language emerging from our tourists. The potential visitors are saying they want to be included in designing the experiences you give them. They want to be co-creating and involved in those experiences. The tourist is also saying, we too want to be trusted, and we want to be invited to a destination. Maybe we're seeing the end of language like marketing and promotion, and instead conceiving of a way of talking to tourists in the same way as you would invite somebody to your house or to a dinner party. The tourist is also saying they would like to be better managed, better advised, and they too would like to be respected and their voices heard. And this new language is implying a new type of relationship between the destination and the guest. In Greater Palm Springs, the Visitor Convention Bureau has issued a pledge. Our pledge to you, the visitor, our pledge to you, our community. In Wales, it's called a promise. I promise to my country, I promise to our visitors promise to us. So we're moving to a place where there's a new relationship building. We know the tourists of tomorrow care. They will care more about the environment, more about sustainability, more about themselves, and more about the places they visit. Great opportunities for us. And when we think about that in detail, it means that destinations have to be known for things that I, as a tourist, care about. And those things probably coincide with the things your community cares about. We care about safe, secure, hygienic, sustainability, health and well-being of ourselves and the places we visit. We want hyper-local food, drink, art, craft experiences. Increasingly, we'll travel with a purpose that improves our lives. We're increasingly interested in nature, open spaces, and the way those places are stewarded and managed. There's a surge for adventure and exploration, and a surge in interest of the places that do things that are right and good. So that's almost back to the future. It's almost getting back to those experiences of radical simplicity that were about the betterment of both self and community. Interesting opportunities to really get back to those things that our community think are important. All sorts of quality fish to help you live longer and generally appear more attractive. The search for our grandmother's recipes and profound experiences as exhibited by the Bell of Peace in Rovereto in Italy, cast from 100 cannons from countries that took part in First World War, rung every night 100 times, and is the most visited attraction in that part of the world, with a very profound message. I think we can expect things that are left of field, what I would call outliers, rapidly becoming mainstream. Things that maybe look a little bit wacky or quirky now will soon enter the range of things that people will want and expect. So here are just some examples of where sculpture parks around the world that began as outliers are now mainstream. We're going to see new actors emerge, people interested in working with you in North Kerry, West Clare, to create new types of experiences. And their objectives are driven by a rationale that says it's not just profit. We want to be part of a community and bring our value system and philosophies to it. So as you look at that screen, the couple in the top left, Ewan and Manuela Worth, who've opened a new art gallery in Somerset. Below them is Carla Rappaport, the former editor of the Financial Times, lives in Wales and is driving digitization and digital experiences in tourism in our communities. And the guitarist is the bass guitarist of Wilco, who almost single-handedly has transformed North Adams in Massachusetts into a thriving new vibrant community. So look, this is where we're at. These are the words of Ian Rankin writing in the foreword to a book on the lyrics of Van Morrison, where Morrison's song, Dwellers on the Threshold, Rankin says that Morrison's talking for us all, poised throughout our lives between what we've already experienced and, in a sense, the unexpected fear of what might lie ahead. And of course, that's what we've got to address. And at this moment in time, a chance to review, reflect, reset, refresh, renew, rethink everything we're doing in tourism, including what might happen within the Cliff Coast development plan for visitor experiences. I haven't got time to take you through a whole range of case studies. I'm just going to focus on 2 of this list. So you will see all 4, but I'd like to concentrate on the River Parrett Trail in Somerset and Bregenz and Bregenzer Wild in Austria, and then just give you some thoughts as to what makes them work. So the River Parrett Trail in Somerset is now in its 15th year. And it's a simple trail that takes our visitors through the county of Somerset, following the River Parrett from source to where it enters the sea. It's a simple concept, but behind the simple concept is a lot of clever activity that I think is very relevant to you. And it all began with this. The Daily Telegraph wrote a review of some travel along the Niger River with 2 guys. And they just said, well, look, it's going to take us a long time to walk the Niger River. And one of them said, well, can't we do this back home, where we could perhaps walk from source to the sea in 4 days? And so began the idea of the River Parrett Trail. It's a trail that, if you walk its length, takes about 4 days. But look at it. It's really unprepossessing stuff. Its headwaters are in a small village, some 70 kilometers from the sea. It's not necessarily the biggest river, the most attractive river, the most inspiring of rivers, but it takes you through a series of very interesting landscapes across the county of Somerset. And it works because this river that occasionally is very angry river and floods the area and is full of traditions such as catching eels. It runs between villages, through villages. But the approach to developing the river as a trail for tourists began by saying, how can we use local artists and craftspeople to create the signage, to create the bridges, to create the artifacts that allow the visitor to follow a trail with purpose and at the same time absorb the culture and way of life of local people. They then, long before they started talking in terms of tourist facilities, they asked every village on the route to create a choir. And they created the River Parrett Choir. And it produced CDs and got the community involved, traditional songs, new songs. And it gave a spirit of a community working together to deliver a project. The next thing they did was that they rebuilt the flattener, the boat that's used on the river and in the drainage channels of the Somerset levels. They did clever things. They had afternoon teas involving the community to get them together to talk about doing interesting things. Local telephone kiosks became libraries for visitors and local people. Activities began to happen and began to emerge, and local businesses started to realize the potential. From the new smokeries, taking the eels and producing a new delicacy, to the new cutting of the withy beds and visitor centres and craft shops making woven baskets from willows, to fabulous characters open hotels, the new cider, Somerset cider brandy, development by Julian Temperley. And we began to see innovation. And that innovation and confidence in investing in facilities for tourists was built on communities working together around a theme that held them together. So the reopening of a village pub, now called the River Parrett Restaurant by local people, farm shops, new bike hire centres, all developed and spirited around a theme that was a physical theme and a community or a selection of communities working together. And this similar idea of finding a theme to hold it together is really pronounced in Bregenz and Bregenzerwald in Austria. This will take me a couple of minutes to tell you this story, and then I'll bring it to an end. So Bregenz on Lake Constance, to the north is Germany, south Switzerland and Liechtenstein, and Bregenz, population 30,000 people, like a gateway to the valley behind it, where there's 21 communities, all about 1,500 people spread around a very pretty landscape. This isn't Austria, the big mountains and the Alps. This is gentle rolling countryside, not dissimilar to what we would find in your neck of the woods. And lots of local traditions, lots of everything you would expect of Austria, but nothing that was going to be the kind of must go, must visit. And in the 1990s, the area was losing people, particularly young people, to Zurich and to Munich, and agriculture was in decline. So there was a rallying call. The mayors, the representatives of all 21 communities got together with the mayor of Bregenz and said, can we find a theme that holds us together to allow the regeneration of our communities and at the same time attract tourists? So they said, we'll agree on a theme of contemporary art and architecture meets nature. So they took their 1930s originated opera, built a new stage on the lake, reinvented the approach to opera, and every other year, for 30 nights a year, 8,000 people come and watch the Bregenz opera. They took a new approach to the design of their buildings in Bregenz, and then it started spilling out into the rural area. So the theme of contemporary art and architecture being the strand that held everything together. From the picture in the middle being Europe's only museum to contemporary women in a village of just 1,200 people, to family-run hotels, 5 6-star hotels, right the way through to Anthony Gormley's 100 sculptures spread across the mountains in what was called the Horizon Field. Hiking the architecture path, the art of building, the strand, the theme, the connection that held it all together. And it came to a magnificent conclusion recently, where every village was told to redesign their bus stops, their bus shelters to match the theme. So we now have 20-odd imaginative artist architecture created bus shelters to provide the ability to visitors to experience the overall theme holding the destination together. So my conclusion from all of that would be that in the search for the future development of the visitor experience, it's about acceptability by the community, co-collaboration in doing it, and finding a great theme to hold it all together, the twine that holds the cells together. So with that, I'll hand you back to Mark, and he'll introduce the first of our international speakers. I hope some things to provoke some thinking and some thoughts about trends for you to get your teeth into. Thank you.